أنتم. Is that Ghunnah, the length of that Ghunnah, is that actually correct? What is the length of a Ghunnah? And are all Ghunnahs created equal? That's what we're talking about in this video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In terms of learning outcomes and what you should get out of this video, number one is you should recognize that Ghunnahs are of different lengths, so they come in different forms. And number two is you should be able to criticize and analyze common mistakes with the Ghunnah. Bismillah, let's go ahead. So let's compare two words. If I say inna and hum, there's Ghunnah in the first word and there's Ghunnah in the second word. Inna, there's a Ghunnah with that noon mushaddada, and hum, there's actually a Ghunnah with that meme. I'll put a link in the video above about the makhraj of meme and the Ghunnah that comes with the meme. So hum is part of the sound that comes from the nasal cavity. So there is a Ghunnah in the meme and there's a Ghunnah in the noon, but they're different lengths. So there is always a Ghunnah that accompanies a noon and a meme. It's actually part of the makhraj of the noon or the meme. I'll put a link above to the makharij in terms of the makhraj of noon and meme, where we explain more about how there is a Ghunnah that comes with these letters. So there's always a Ghunnah with a noon and a meme. However, the length of Ghunnah is different depending on how that noon or meme comes about in the Quran. So what are the lengths of Ghunnahs? The first disclaimer is, to know the length of a Ghunnah, you need to read it to a shaykh or a shaykha to gauge the correct length for you. But to simplify the concept, we can divide it into four categories. The first being the longest Ghunnah and the last being the shortest Ghunnah. So the longest Ghunnah is when we have a noon or meme with a shaddah. So inna or amma. These are examples with a noon or a meme with a shaddah. That's the longest Ghunnah. Now the second longest Ghunnah, only slightly less, is when we have ikhfa of noon or idgham of noon with the letters of idgham except the noon, the qalb of noon, ikhfa shafawi of the meme. So some words as examples: antum, man ya'mal, min ba'd, ترميهم بحجارة. So that's the second level, or the second longest level of Ghunnah. Now it's only slightly less than the first level, but again, to gauge it correctly, it has to be read to a shaykh or a shaykha. The third level of Ghunnah, so less length than that, is with a noon or a meme which are sakina. So we say in or hum, alayhim, him. So there's still a Ghunnah with a meme, as we said. It's just not as long as a Ghunnah of a noon mushaddada or in ikhfa and so on. And the lowest or the shortest Ghunnah is with a noon or meme when they have a harakah. So nasta'een, na. There's still a very short Ghunnah that comes with a noon because as part of the makhraj of noon, part of it is from the nasal cavity. So there is a Ghunnah with a noon. So the longest Ghunnah is with a noon or meme which has a shaddah. Right after that is when you have ikhfa of noon, idgham of noon into most letters, and qalb, and a meme which has ikhfa shafawi. Then shorter than that is a noon or meme with a sukoon, and even shorter than that, and the least one, is a noon or meme with a harakah. Now how long should that length of the Ghunnah be? So antum or فَمَن يَعْمَلْ, how long should this Ghunnah be? As we started, we said this should be read to a shaykh or shaykha to get it accurately or to gauge it accurately. If we wanted to simplify it, we can say it's 2 harakat. So that second level of Ghunnah would be 2 harakat, and the first level Ghunnah would be 2 and a little bit. But again, this is just simplifying it. We've got to read it to a shaykh or shaykha, because these things are only by mushafaha, is by reading it to a trained shaykh or shaykha. Now let's analyze some common mistakes with Ghunnahs. Number one is overextending the Ghunnah. Inna, that's overextending it. That's not the right length. There I'm just following some musical rhythm, but that's outside of Tajweed. I've just incorrectly done the length of Ghunnah. So we have to be careful. The Ghunnah has to be a certain gauge. It has to be accurate. It's not an open-ended length. Another mistake one can fall into with Ghunnahs is when you stop on a letter which has Ghunnah. So when I say أنعمت عليهم, that meme in the end. Incorrect would be to say أنعمت عليهم, him. Again, I'm following a melody. Now let's actually dissect that. أنعمت عليهم. So that's incorrect. Let's dissect that. Let's look at that. How many noons or memes with a sukoon are there? An, that's a noon with a sukoon. Am, that's a meme with a sukoon. Alayhim, that's a meme with a sukoon. All these three should be the same length. So an, am, him, same length of Ghunnah, right? Because they were the same category. So I should be saying أنعمت عليهم, not أنعمت عليهم, right? Again, we don't want to follow a melody. We want to be accurate. We want to read the letters similar to each other and the associated Ghunnahs similar to each other. And the last common mistake with Ghunnah isn't just to do with noon or meme, it's to do with all the letters. So sometimes there's Ghunnah introduced to the entire reading, and that's sometimes difficult to get rid of, but it can be with training. So if I'm reading like this, إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. Now I'm exaggerating here, but you can hear the nasal sound in the whole reading. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. You hear that nasal sound? So I introduced Ghunnah to all the letters, while Ghunnah should be only with noon or meme, and as we said before. So إياك نستعين. When we dissect the word nasta'in, here it's actually interesting because I'm finishing on the noon, عين, but I don't want the Ghunnah to start on the ya. I don't want to say عين. No, I want ya, no Ghunnah, then noon has the Ghunnah. عين. And we've mentioned this in previous videos. How do I know if there's a Ghunnah or not in the letter? I can close my nose and I can check. The sound isn't changing. But if I have a Ghunnah, and now I close my nose, I can see that the sound is changing. Therefore, part of the sound is coming through the nasal cavity, and that's not correct. Ghunnah is only with the noon or meme, not with the remaining of the letters. Now let's go back to those learning objectives and make sure we tick them off. Number one, we said we wanted to recognize that there are different lengths to Ghunnah, and we mentioned that in detail. And how do I gauge the correct length of Ghunnah? I need to read it to a shaykh or a shaykha. And number two, we spoke about some of the common mistakes with Ghunnahs. Generally speaking, it's about extending the length of Ghunnah too much, or introducing it to letters which should not have Ghunnah. If you wanted to test your understanding of the material we just said in this video, there's a link below in the description with an online quiz that you can do to check your understanding. Feel free to do it, and there's also a link to the entire material and all the videos of this Tajweed program. We'll see you in the next video, Insha'Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.